Thanks for joining us again for another episode. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time. We're actually going to cover a yet-to-be-released new Australian slasher film called The Furies. It actually releases nationally on the 7th of November, but it's also premiering at Monster Fest with screenings in Sydney, Canberra, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide on October the 31st. So we're getting in a bit early. We're not going to spoil anything here, or we're going to try and avoid spoiling anything as much as we can. Is that correct, Jared?
Yeah. Given that people won't have the chance to see it for a little while, it's probably best we just, try to avoid spoiling any of the big.
I mean, we don't usually spoil things.
No, of course not. We don't talk about things in depth or anything.
Spoiler alert is like a reflex.
yeah.
Just randomly comes out. Oh shit! Spoiler alert. So we are not going to spoil it. So it will be a little more, I guess you'd say, broad in the notes that we give. But let's go to the trailer right now for 2019's The Furies.
It's a game. There's only one way out. Win.
It's like I'm seeing through their eyes. They've put these in our heads. I think that they're watching.
The Furies from 2019. It was written and directed by Tony D'Aquino, who had directed a show called Too Twisted, and he'd also done a couple of shorts. He'd also directed the He'll Never Be an Old Man River video by Tism.
Yeah. I remember that song. Good times.
Yeah, I remember that song very well. It's produced by Andy Marriott, who did Riptide, and Lisa Shaughnessy, who produced a film from a couple of years ago called Killing Ground, which is, I believe, is also very well received. It stars Ali Dodds as Kayla, Linda No as Rose, and Taylor Ferguson as Sheena. Now, just a little bit of a short synopsis. Kayla and her best friend Maddie are abducted and dumped in the woods, along with 5 other young women. When they're attacked by a horde of masked killers, the fragile bonds formed amongst the group shatter as they fight to survive. Now, the budget was $1.5 million, and it was shot on location at the historic mining village in Bywong, New South Wales, which is just on the outskirts of where we are, which is Canberra. And the sets were actually built at the CIT in Woden.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. General thoughts, Jared?
Look, obviously, when you get a little indie one like this, you're not sure what to expect often, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised by this one. Like, the concept behind it is an absolute winner. The idea of meshing some things that we've seen before all together just had me absolutely into it for the entire runtime, basically. So yeah, I was really impressed by that. You can tell that the people involved are horror fans. They're definitely ticked all the boxes for genre fans like us. So yeah, I was really pleased and glad we got the chance to check it out. The effects, the prosthetic effects and the blood and gore that they've worked in there is extremely impressive. Again, considering the budget's pretty low. Yeah, that stuff was all fantastic. So visually it was pretty... there was a few times where me and you were out of the seats just going, geez, wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I was a big fan. I probably ended up at about a 3.5 out of 5, but yeah, I don't know. You give me another viewing, I could be probably swayed around to a 4. I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, me too. It's hard to do something new in slashers these days. I mean, that stuff has been just ridden into the ground. Everybody's done every type of slasher movie you can possibly find, and we do all these. There's always these. Usually it's bog standard, but then you throw in a few interesting touches, and I think that they somehow mind another nice little angle. Yes, it's probably a little bit derivative of some other things or partially taking from some other things.
Yeah.
But it didn't take away from it. Like, I didn't sit there going, I've seen this before.
No, you've seen elements of it before, but you haven't seen them in this context,
Yeah.
which is why
and so they
it's such a
kind of
winner.
wrapped it in quite nicely with something fresh.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of the old and a bit of the new squashed together,
Yeah.
but done in a really, really quality way. As you said, a budget of $1.5 million. That's not a lot of cash in today's filmmaking. It's not like the old days where you whacked out a slasher for 200. Hey.
Yeah, you couldn't you couldn't get in touch with Roger Corman and make a Fantastic Four movie for $1 million these days.
That's right. $1.5 million these days is probably, very much a low budget film.
Yep.
And they get fantastic mileage out of the location. And the location is absolutely fantastic. They get great work from the special effects and the costuming of the killers. I think they look great. And, they get solid performances. I mean, it's not really an actor's piece because it's pretty short and lean. But I thought the main girl, Arlie Dodds, was pretty good.
Yep, she was very good.
And for the most part, it's really well directed too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a 3.5. I put it above some other Australian films that I've really liked recently, like The Loved Ones, Charlie's Farm, Boar. They were all good, reasonable Australian films.
Yeah.
They probably all had bigger budgets than this one.
Yeah.
But this is a better movie.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. I'm a big fan of The Loved Ones.
Yeah.
But that's not anything against this movie because it's just, subjective, obviously. But, yeah, I was a very big fan of this.
Yeah.
Especially, as I said, you're not really sure what you're getting yourself into sometimes with indie films like this. So when we got the opportunity to watch it, obviously we were like, yeah, for sure, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. So
Yeah.
This is something I could imagine going back to numerous times and going, adding it to the sort of Halloween playlists and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, so I'm a 3.5 as well. The likes, mate. I think the location in Bywong, there was something different about it, even though it was kind of like in sort of what you'd say would be the woods. The eucalyptus trees
Classic
and
Australian
it had a real Aussie feel
Yeah.
about where it was.
Yep.
I just felt that the mining part of it, like the whole mining town side of things, was another nice addition.
Yeah, you've obviously got the bush, which works quite well for some of that stalk and slash stuff. And as you said, the mining town gives it a nice creepy little vibe. Obviously, a bit of a some nods to some backwoods type slashes in there with that setting. Even when they there's parts where they kind of hit the fringes of where they are, and there's this just sort of desolate landscape.
Yeah.
It all looks really good.
In
And
fact, the mining town possibly could have been used, dare I say it, mined a little bit further for some more scares even. You're in the actual tunnels, possibly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the darkness and the, unable to... It's harder to escape.
Yeah.
If you've only got one way in and out.
Possibly could be a budget thing there.
Yeah, and I think it probably was. But and I'm not knocking the fact they didn't do that.
No. Also nice to see what we think was a couple of local landscapes in there.
Yes.
Sort of some areas around where we've grown up. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was something in Belconnen.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure. It was hard to tell because obviously it was dark behind where they were.
Yep.
But we're pretty sure it was there.
Looked around the Belco Library there somewhere.
Yeah. So nice. That's a nice little touch.
Yep.
Special effects. Outstanding. Outstanding. That's as good as you'll get.
Yeah, I think so.
Even if you had a $30 million budgeted slasher, that sort of stuff is top notch. And the information that we were given when we were asked to review this film, the special effects man's credits were quite extensive and high quality stuff.
I actually read an article on ABC about making the movie, and he was sort of talking about how it's a bit of a dying art, the prosthetics. But I mean, obviously that's probably playing into costs and things like that. But I mean, geez, if you got a $1.5 million budget and you get this sort of work out of the prosthetics, I mean, far out. It's worth investing in, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got the cash to go that route, like, it looks awesome.
It's kind of sad to think it's a dying art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because nothing about watching the film and looking at those effects had me going, oh, look, it'd be better if you just jazzed it up. With
I could do with a bit of CGI blood spatter and all that sort of. No,
nothing about it. In fact, there's a rawness to it and almost a realness to it.
Yeah,
that I think gives it a real bit of punch. And it's no surprise that those early Friday the 13th and that were successful based around that type of work. But the work here is just, it's superb.
Yeah.
It's top class.
And when you're going that, I guess, by choice, when you're choosing to go the prosthetics, because back in, those Friday the 13th, the Tom Savini days, it wasn't really a choice. You had to do the prosthetics.
Yeah, that's all they had.
And now it's like a choice. So if you're going that by choice, you want to end up with a result like this, I guess.
Yeah. The whole thing for that budget, it just looks really, really good. Apart from the effects, it's well shot. As I said before, the acting is reasonably solid. The costumes, like the killers all look enough different, to give you, so you could sort of pick each one, you knew who was who.
Yeah.
And those costumes are good. Like the guy who looks a bit Leatherfacey.
Yeah.
His costume was excellent.
Yep.
And so those sort of things, it just adds an extra sheen to it. You put in your money into something that it pays off in spades.
Yep.
They would have budgeted well, and it would have been a pretty quick shoot, you'd think. And they had a location they didn't have to pay for. You don't have to go and hire something. You just get out in the woods and there you go. So I think it all worked out, and it just, everything about that stuff was really, really well done. I felt the one thing that I really liked about the film was you're never quite sure what was actually happening.
No, I mean, from the outset, they have the little kind of opening where you're immediately like, oh, okay, so we've got a bit of a horror trope here, and then you're just going to flip it on its head.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what's going on? And for about probably half an hour, you're going through the ins and outs. I mean, we spitballed a couple of ideas of what was going on, and you pretty much nailed it, after one particular scene. But even when you find out the situation that they're in, it allows them to throw up these little kind of misdirections and these little things that you're not expecting quite consistently.
And at no point until the final probably 10 minutes did they lay all the cards on the table. Yeah. The whole reasoning behind what was going on was not fully explained until right near the end. And
even then, that was pretty slim. It was more focused on the characters that were involved in it at the time. And
so that's gold for an 80-minute film where you can keep the audience guessing for the majority of that time, and nobody's sitting in their seat going, "Oh God," expected that coming, because I certainly didn't see several things coming.
No, well, even when you have a full understanding of what's happening, you still got these little curveballs that are thrown at you in how the particular characters handle the situation. And as you said, there was moments all throughout where you're just like, shit, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So, and that's good, because in this sort of genre, we've seen just about everything that can be, thrown at you. So you're conditioned to kind of just pick, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen, and that's part of the fun of it. This is where it's going to go. This is who it's going to be, or whatever. And it's just, I never really was able to pick the situations that were going to unfold there, really.
And I'm going to be upfront and honest, as you say, the slasher movie is known in its bread and butter form as giving you exactly what you expect.
Yeah,
exactly what you expect, and we're slasher fans because of that. So, like you, coming into this, I wasn't expecting anything more than the basic synopsis kind of indicated.
Yeah.
That they were out in the woods, a group of girls running from a group of mad killers.
Yeah.
You get what you get.
And you still get some of that.
Yeah.
Like, you still get what you expect, but then you get the twists on it too.
Yeah, and that's the surprises that I liked, is to give me what I want, but also twist it a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly, you can't ask for much more than that, really.
Yeah, so I think they did a fantastic job to do that and keep it all under wraps, basically.
Yeah.
And never give you the actual sense that, halfway through we know exactly what's happening.
Yep.
And we will roll with it.
Yeah.
I just felt that they twisted it regularly. Not great. Like, they weren't big twists.
Yeah.
But they were just enough to put you on edge a little bit.
Yep.
The opening credit font looks
just
exactly like Halloween.
Love it.
And that's a really nice little touch.
Yep.
And again, something that's probably, once again, says to me that the filmmakers are slasher movie fans and fans of the genre.
Yeah.
And that's important when you make these sorts of films.
Yeah.
You've got to be somebody who knows what this stuff is. Not somebody who's brought in as a pinch hitter to direct a slasher movie. I don't really care for them, but I'll make them.
Yeah, you can sort of see the difference when it's someone that's obviously invested in it.
Yeah, and I think that was just a nice little touch.
And building on that, obviously, the writer-director, Tony D'Aquino, yep. By the fact that he clearly knows the tropes and he knows what's going on in these movies, obviously that allowed him to twist them a little, because he'd be sitting there thinking, this is what they're going to expect. This is where I'm going to twist it.
Yeah.
Happens with the girls. Happens with the killers.
Yeah.
But also it allows him to work with kind of the. It allows him to get his little messages across about whatever societal messages he's putting out there. Obviously, in the sort of interview material that we had access to, he talked about how horror movies are reactionary to what's going on in society, and that's this one's no different. So his knowledge of the genre allowed him to put out there his little message, which was fun too. It was all about the girls that are being put upon by the group of men, and how the girls deal with each other is just as important as how they're working against what they've been put into. And that wasn't it wasn't
banging you over the head either.
No, it wasn't overdone, but it was there, and it was.
He got it into the film in a nice, simplified way.
Yeah.
That it didn't kind of take away from the fun or entertainment of the film.
No.
And it added that extra layer.
Yeah.
That just helped you. Again, there's a little bit of subtext, there's a little bit of twists and turns.
Yeah. He knows the formula quite clearly, but it allows him to play with it in his own way.
Yeah.
And get what he wanted out of it, which was good.
He did. There was a couple of really cool shots. One in particular that I thought was fantastic, where it's kind of like when we first get the main girl in the woods, and then they kind of pull back and show you that there is nowhere to go.
Yeah. It looked like it might have started with a drone or something like that, and then gone into some.
Done some visuals to it.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those classic things, it comes back to something like Jaws, where Spielberg was saying, I need to be able to see the water.
Set up the environment,
360-degree water, so you know that you cannot just go home. You can't just go home. And this perfect way to set it up. There is nowhere to run, there is nowhere to go for help.
Yep.
You're out there on your own. So a really, really nice shot and a really nice touch. Again, just setting up the basics of where we are and the fact that we're in trouble. I really did like that. There was another thing that was sort of brought up, that again, subtext wise, that I kind of liked as well. It was only briefly touched on, but it kind of played out through the film. But it's where they talk about almost like natural selection.
Yeah.
The slowest person.
Yeah. They sort of parallel it with pig shooting, and things like that. And I was a big fan of that.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that towards the back end, that becomes equally as important as what's going on outside the group.
Yeah.
What the dynamics within the group become just as kind of compelling and
I mean,
surprising.
We were talking about what we would do, and I was telling you that I would push you over.
Yeah, no, I thought I said you'd have to push me over first because I'd be thinking the same thing, and I'd be, if a killer jumped up on me, I'd be saying he's over there, and then I'd run the other way.
Yeah. As I said, mate, I would be, as soon as I realised where I was, deep stretching, because when I start to break into stride, you're going to have to keep up with me.
Oh dear.
And I'll stretch, mate. I'll get going.
Yeah, but as I said, it's short burst fitness, and I've got you over 100. So, if we have to go 1 to 200...
You only need to get ahead by 10 metres and I'm cactus.
If we go 1 to 200, I've got you by 10 to 15 metres. You're stuffed. That axe is coming into your back, not mine. And then, once I cover that 100, I can sag.
Do you sag back a little?
Yeah, my pace
while
can
I'm
drop.
being butchered.
Yeah. My pace can drop a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Over the 100. Look, but if it's a few Ks,
and if you're hiding in a tree,
you're putting
check under the log on the ground, and then I'm running away.
Yeah, true.
I've got my strategies here.
Yeah, I'm a mongrel. I'm the kind of guy that you don't want to be around because I'm pointing blokes out. I'm pushing blokes over. It's not good.
Yeah, you're like, it's like Futurama for you. Every man for himself, and then you fall over and help me, Luna. That's me, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it. There was a couple of very gory moments. Very gory moments.
Yeah.
One or two that came out of nowhere. Like, I was just like, what the fuck was that? It just kind of shocked me a little bit. It was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
And it relates back to the whole finale type of ideas and everything, but some of them were very gory. One in particular was quite brutal.
Yeah.
And it was because it was close, like it stayed on the person while it was happening, which I always find much more difficult to watch in comparison to chopping someone's head clean off.
Yeah.
Those ones where they kind of focus on the person.
Yes. Yeah.
Are much more sort of brutal.
Yeah. And I felt this, it was a pretty good mix. I didn't feel like it was overdone. It didn't feel like, it's not one of those movies where you watch it and think, they've gore's basically all they've got to offer.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't that. But as you said, like it was just consistently keeping you on your toes and just, it managed to spring a bunch of surprising moments on you. And that was part of it, I think.
Yeah. And look, that particularly brutal one is the first one. So it's kind of like giving you the understanding of
this is where we're at.
Yeah, this is how nasty these blokes can be. And then it backs off to a bit more normal in terms of the kills. But, yeah, I think gore-wise, if you're a gore fan, if you're a bit of a gore fan, you certainly won't be disappointed here. There was a couple of twists at the end. One in particular, and again, I don't want to go into it.
We don't want to go too much into it, yeah.
That again I just didn't see coming. Like right at the end, there was one in particular that I really, really liked. And again, it just sort of tweaked. You kind of should have seen it coming because we kind of knew the setup by then.
Yeah.
But again, the film sort of goes somewhere else for a brief period and you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff.
Yeah, it was all. That was one of the best things about it. So it was 80 odd minutes. It was a very quick run time, but you never really got a handle on where everything was going to go. Like no matter the predictions that we made, there was always something about it that kind of veered off in a different direction.
And it kind of almost ended on a sequel note.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know where you would take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was another really cool part of it is that it hadn't explained the whole box and dice. So
yeah,
it had left you with enough information, but not enough to know the full details outside of where that location was.
Yeah, there's still a lot that could be explored, I guess.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I was kind of like, I'd be very happy to see a sequel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty much it for me, likes-wise.
Yeah, I think you've covered it there pretty well.
Staying pretty broad. Look, I didn't have a lot of dislikes.
No.
There were a couple of things that didn't work. A little bit of the editing when the killers were chasing characters a couple of times was a bit choppy. You know, it was chopped up pretty fast, and the camera was a little shaky to perhaps give you that sense of, you know, frenetic, you know, trying to get away type of thing. It wasn't bad. It was minor.
Yeah.
But it kind of didn't go against, but it kind of felt different to the rest of the film, which was shot really clean.
Yeah.
And really, you know, everything was stable.
Yeah, yep.
So, yeah, that was a minor quibble for me.
Yep.
It wasn't anything that was going to ruin the experience for me. It does hit a bit of a sag.
Yeah, I guess it's a product of that you get into it at such a cracking pace.
Yeah.
Like you get a little bit of a, work setting up the girls that are involved, and then it's at such a cracking pace that when you take the foot off the gas for a minute, it's kind of a jolt.
Yeah.
So when they sort of, there's a section, you hit the mining town, and this kind of necessary work between a couple of the characters to build up what comes afterwards just kind of feels a bit slow because the rest of it was just, breakneck speed.
Yeah.
To start with.
The first 30 minutes is at such a pace that it's probably not really that slow if you actually look back on it, because you're only looking at it's an 80-minute film.
Yeah.
But in the context of what had come before, that period in the mining town, or the start of the mining town stuff, was just a little slow.
Yeah.
They kind of introduced another character, and it kind of just took almost some explanation time.
Yeah.
That was necessary, as you say.
Yeah.
But didn't. It slowed everything down. In fact, I think we didn't see a killer in that period. So
not for a little bit.
Yeah.
It comes into it. Yeah. It slows it down for. I don't know. It felt like about 10 minutes, but as you said, the pace of the movie, it was probably only about 5 minutes, maybe not even.
But that was a little bit of a slow point. There's one particular character that I just couldn't quite get my head around what they were trying to do with them. They kind of had a childlike quality that I'm not really sure what that was and why it was there, considering the rest of the characters seemed as you would expect, whereas this person felt a little bit sort of off out of it.
Yeah.
It felt like a weird choice, I guess.
Yeah,
for me.
I guess watching it felt like there could have been a different way to handle the character, yet still get the same, kind of the same moments out of them that you do sort of throughout the rest of the film. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit. The childlike stuff seemed a bit. It stuck out a bit.
Yeah,
and as you said, I didn't quite get the reasoning for why you would go that path anyway.
I could understand sort of perhaps quiet, shy, doesn't talk a lot, as opposed to what they went with.
Yeah, even that, I'm not sure that,
because they went sort of something different.
There's a mental, there's a something around the kind of mental stability of the person that needed to be there.
Yeah, of course.
Which quiet and shy doesn't necessarily mean someone's mentally unstable.
Perhaps there was a better way to do it, because I just felt every time that character spoke, I kind of felt like it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. Like they seemed like they came from another movie. They came in and it was kind of like, what the hell's going on here, for a few minutes, and we had to get acclimated to that person, and it just didn't feel like it fit. It has payoff, and maybe there's more to it. Let's say if there was a further film, maybe it has more to it, but it just felt weirdly included. And maybe that's just me.
It was quite jarring.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was... Yeah, it was like, as you said, it was like there was a child along for the ride, and I'm not sure. Maybe there was something, we are a pair of idiots, so maybe there was some subtext missing. So.
Look, I'm not known for my brains, so I'm not going to believe that I would possibly have worked out what the go was. But for me, it just didn't feel right. or it just didn't feel like it belonged in the film.
It's fine to have characters with,
Different
mental capacities and whatever, different abilities and whatnot. But as you said, it just felt like we never really grasped what the purpose of that was for this character.
Yeah,
like I understood it in terms of how it made her interact with the other characters.
Yes,
but I thought if that's the reason why it's there, I felt like there was other ways to handle it rather than being sort of mentally slow.
Yeah,
I don't know, but anyway, that's again it
never ruined the experience. It wasn't a key thing that knocked a lot of points off for me.
No.
There's one more dislike for me. There's something that happens at the end that I just didn't feel was necessary. That's my personal opinion, and unfortunately, obviously, we can't spoil it. But it involves the main character, and it's only in it for about a minute at the end. But I just remember looking at it and thinking, well, what was it? There was no point of that.
Yeah.
And again, maybe
I know what you're talking about.
Maybe that's going into some future stuff. Maybe there's an idea for a second film, kind of and this builds into it more.
Lingering effects of the experience and whatnot.
And I'd be very happy with that if that's the way it played out. If it did have some it was necessary to build into something else.
Yeah.
But to me, it just sort of wasn't really that necessary.
Yeah, it didn't quite land.
Yeah.
It didn't quite land, I guess.
Because it was so close to the end, it was kind of like... there was no real point in putting it there unless there's something more to it. And, of course, that was the end of the film.
I didn't love it so much, but as you said, it was only there for a very brief stretch at the end, so I kind of... moved on, I guess.
Copped it?
Yep.
Any other dislikes for you?
No, it was pretty limited. It was mainly around the similar things that you had there that we talked about. So.
Yeah. Well, that is The Furies from 2019. As I said before, it is being released in cinemas nationally from November the 7th. It is also has some premiere screenings at Monsterfest in Sydney, Canberra, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide on October the 31st. Definitely get out and check it out. If you're a fan of horror films in general, if you're a fan of Australian cinema, and being Australians, we need to support this type of stuff coming out of our industry with regards to horror, and this is definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely worth a viewing. You can find us on iTunes, Podomatic and Spotify. Email address for us is thrillme@iinet.net.au. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia and at Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. We're also on Instagram at thrillmepodcastau. And make sure you rate and review us so we can spread the word about us. Our next episode, after cutting Jared's legs out from under him with Ghost in the Machine, we've decided to go to Darkman from 1990. But until then, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.